My boss tried to ruin my life. But karma hit back hard. Have you ever had a boss who seemed to live just to make your life miserable? Well, this is the story of how my boss tried to destroy my career, and how karma turned everything upside down. I had just landed what I thought was my dream job at a mid-sized marketing agency. The pay was solid, the office had a modern vibe, and for the first few weeks, everything felt perfect. That's when I met Karen. No, that's not her real name, but she was the walking definition of a Karen, condescending tone, fake smile, always looking for drama. She was my direct manager. At first, she pretended to be nice. She praised my creativity, said she was excited to have me on the team, and even invited me out for coffee. I thought, wow, maybe I really got lucky. But the mask slipped fast. Have you ever met someone who's jealous of you for no reason at all? That was Karen. The moment clients started complimenting my work, she changed. Suddenly, every presentation I made wasn't professional enough. Every idea I pitched was too risky. She even started taking credit for my designs in meetings with upper management. The worst part? She wasn't even good at her job. She relied on the team to do the heavy lifting, then presented it as her own masterpiece. One time, she literally told me, "You're here to make me look good, don't forget that." At first, I thought maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I needed to toughen up. But then she went further. What would you do if your boss started sabotaging you on purpose? Karen began assigning me impossible deadlines. She'd forget to forward important client emails, then blame me for missing information. She even told another coworker, "I don't think OP is cut out for this industry. They'll probably quit in a month." The breaking point came when she accused me of missing a deadline I had already completed. The project was sitting in her inbox, but she claimed I never sent it. I showed her the email receipt, timestamp and all. Instead of apologizing, she smirked and said, "Next time, make sure you CC me and the director. Just in case." That's when I realized she was setting me up to fail. If you've ever wished for karma to take care of a toxic boss, keep listening. One afternoon, I got called into a surprise meeting with the director and HR. My heart dropped. Karen was already there, arms crossed, with this smug look like she had finally won. She started listing all the mistakes I had made, missed deadlines, poor communication, client complaints. My jaw was on the floor. None of it was true. But before I could even defend myself, the director cut her off. "Karen," he said, "we've been reviewing client feedback for the past quarter. And interestingly, all the complaints we've received have been about your handling of projects." Her face turned pale. Apparently, clients had started bypassing Karen entirely, reaching out to the director directly, saying she was unresponsive and taking credit for work she didn't do. The director then turned to me and said, "We've also reviewed OP's work, and it's been outstanding." Multiple clients mentioned OP by name for creativity and reliability. Karen tried to interrupt, but HR pulled out a folder. Inside were printed emails, evidence from coworkers who had grown tired of her bullying. They had been documenting everything. The director looked her dead in the eye and said, "We don't tolerate dishonesty or sabotage in this company. You're terminated, effective immediately." Karen exploded. She shouted that it was unfair, that we were all against her. Security had to escort her out of the building while she screamed about lawsuits. And me? Not only did I keep my job, but I was promoted to her position within 3 months. The sweetest part? Remember that project she tried to steal from me? It ended up winning a regional award. My name, not hers, was on the trophy. So, if you've ever had a toxic boss who made you doubt yourself, remember, karma is real, and sometimes it works faster than you think. My boss fired me for no reason. So I took everything from him. Have you ever been blindsided at work, fired out of nowhere, with no explanation? That happened to me. But what my boss didn't know was that his little power move would end up destroying him, not me. I had been working at a small but growing software company for 3 years. When I joined, we were only 10 employees. By the time this story takes place, we were close to 60. I wasn't just some random employee. I had basically built the backbone of our customer support system. I knew the clients personally, I had written the documentation, and I was the one people came to when they needed solutions. But my boss, let's call him Rick, didn't like that. What happens when a boss feels threatened by the very person making the company successful? Rick had that classic fake it till you make it energy. He loved acting like a visionary, always talking big, but he barely understood how our software worked. Whenever we had client demos, he would use slides I prepared. If a client asked a technical question, he'd quickly turn to me and say, "Why don't you explain, OP?" Then later take the credit. Still, I kept my head down. I thought, whatever, as long as I'm getting paid, who cares who gets the glory? But Rick wanted more. Have you ever worked for someone who sees your success as a threat, not an asset? It started with small jabs. "OP, you really should be faster with emails." Or, "Clients like you, but don't get cocky." Then came the rumors. A coworker told me Rick had been saying I was hard to manage and didn't follow directions. Which was funny, because most of the time he had no directions. One Friday afternoon, right before the weekend, he called me into his office. "OP, I've been reviewing your performance. I don't think you're a good cultural fit for the company. Today is your last day." I was stunned. No warning, no explanation, just gone. When I asked for a reason, he smirked and said, "Sometimes things don't work out. What would you do if you were fired for no reason, but you knew the whole company relied on your work?" Here's what Rick forgot. I was the one who had built all the client relationships. I knew their pain points, their renewal dates, and the little details that kept them happy. Within days, clients started reaching out to me directly, asking why I wasn't answering tickets. I told them the truth, I no longer worked at the company. One by one, they started saying the same thing. "Wait, you were the reason we stayed with this company. Without you, we're not renewing." I didn't plan it, but a few clients literally asked if I could keep helping them privately. That's when the idea hit me. Sometimes losing your job isn't the end, it's the beginning of something much bigger. Registered a small consulting business under my own name. I didn't poach clients, I didn't have to. They came to me. Within 2 months, I had 6 clients under contract, paying me directly. I was making more money than I did at the company, and working fewer hours. Meanwhile, word started spreading in the industry that Rick's company had lost their best guy. Renewal rates tanked. Clients left in droves. One day, a former coworker texted me. "Dude, Rick is freaking out. He's been blaming everyone, but the truth is the clients all wanted you." And here's where karma hit harder than I ever expected. About 6 months later, I got a call from one of the investors in Rick's company. He wanted to know if I'd be interested in joining a new leadership team they were putting together. Turns out, the investors were furious. Rick had lied about client retention numbers and pretended everything was fine. But once I left, the company lost nearly 40% of its revenue in under a year. They kicked Rick out. And the crazy part? They offered me his job. CEO. I turned it down. Honestly, I didn't want to babysit a broken company. But man. Knowing the same guy who smugly fired me for no reason got kicked out by his own investors? Priceless. I stayed with my consulting business, and to this day, I make double what I made under him, with a fraction of the stress. So if you've ever been unfairly fired, remember this, sometimes it's the best thing that can happen to you. Because when the wrong boss closes one door, you might just end up opening a much bigger one. My boss tried to ruin my life. But I turned the whole office against him. Have you ever had a boss who didn't just dislike you, but actually tried to ruin your life? That's exactly what happened to me. But here's the thing, he underestimated how much the rest of the office actually respected me. This is the story of how one toxic boss's plan backfired so hard that he lost his job, and I walked away with everything I wanted. I worked at a mid-sized marketing agency. Around 80 people, fast-paced, lots of deadlines. I loved it. I wasn't just there for a paycheck, I was proud of the work I did. For 3 years, I had been the go-to person for big accounts. Clients trusted me, coworkers came to me for help, and even some managers said things like, "If OP leaves, this place is screwed." But then, we got a new director. Let's call him Mark. At first, Mark acted friendly. He complimented my work, said things like, "You're exactly the kind of employee I like." I thought, great, maybe this guy will actually make the office better. I was wrong. Have you ever met someone who smiles to your face, but secretly plots against you behind the scenes? Here's the thing, Mark wasn't good at his job. At all. He talked in buzzwords, loved flashy presentations, and constantly bragged about his vision. But when it came to actual strategy, he was lost. And clients noticed. The problem for him was, whenever he fumbled, I was usually the one to step in and fix things. Not because I wanted to show him up, but because I didn't want us to lose clients. But to Mark, that was a threat. He wanted to be the star. I was just supposed to be background noise. What happens when a boss realizes his employee is better at his job than he is? It started small. He'd leave me off important email chains. He'd forget to invite me to meetings. Then came the whispers. A coworker told me Mark had been saying I was too aggressive with clients. Another said he claimed I didn't take direction well. It was laughable, because my entire reputation at the company was built on strong client relationships and teamwork. But slowly, I noticed something, upper management was treating me differently. Less trust. More questions. More check-ins. It was clear, Mark was trying to push me out. So what do you do when your boss is actively sabotaging you? Do you quit or fight back? The breaking point came during a massive pitch to a new client. I had spent weeks preparing a full strategy, complete with research, visuals, and a step-by-step rollout plan. The morning of the meeting, Mark walked in, took my deck, and presented it as his own. He didn't even bother to change the title page with my name on it, just deleted it. And the worst part? He bombed the presentation. He couldn't answer client questions. He fumbled details. And when the client asked something specific, he actually said, let me have OP explain." I carried the rest of the meeting. We saved the pitch, but Mark still took credit. That was it. I wasn't going to let him bury me. Sometimes the best way to beat a toxic boss isn't by fighting him directly, but by letting him destroy himself. I didn't go to HR right away. I knew that in office politics, it's not about who's right, it's about who has proof. So I started collecting receipts. Emails where I gave him strategies he later claimed as his own. Messages where he criticized me for not keeping him in the loop even though he had left me out intentionally. Notes from coworkers who noticed the same patterns. But the big play came when I suggested recording client meetings for training purposes. Mark thought it was a brilliant idea. Perfect. Now, every time he stole credit or tried to throw me under the bus, there was a record. And then, the perfect opportunity for revenge landed right in my lap. About 2 months later, Mark made his biggest mistake. We were in a meeting with a long-term client. Mark was trying to upsell them on a service we didn't even offer yet. The client was confused and asked a very simple question: how would this even work? Mark panicked. And then, in front of everyone, he said, "Well, OP dropped the ball on preparing that." The client's eyes snapped to me. My coworkers' jaws dropped. Because everyone knew, I was always the one who came prepared. But here's the kicker, the meeting was recorded. After the call, Mark stormed into my office, yelling about how I made him look bad. That's when I calmly pulled up the recording, hit play, and said, "Funny, because this doesn't look like my fault." His face turned pale. That was the moment I knew, I had him cornered. Now it was just a matter of time. I took everything I had, emails, messages, recordings, and went to HR. But I didn't just drop it all at once. I laid it out carefully, piece by piece, showing the pattern of his behavior. The HR rep just sat there, silent, as the evidence piled up. "By the end," she said, "we'll investigate this immediately." Within a week, half the office had been interviewed. And guess what? Coworkers backed me up. People had seen how he treated me. Some had their own stories about being undermined. Management couldn't ignore it anymore. One Friday afternoon, Mark was called into a meeting. 30 minutes later, he walked out carrying a cardboard box. He was fired. The best part? The email management sent out didn't sugarcoat it. They said he was terminated for behavior inconsistent with company values. I stayed at the company another year, got promoted, and eventually left on my own terms for an even better job. So here's the lesson: toxic bosses think they're untouchable. They think their title protects them. But if you stay patient, collect proof, and let them dig their own grave, sometimes karma doesn't just hit, it destroys. And if you enjoyed these stories, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more Reddit dramas every week, and share your own crazy boss story in the comments below. Who knows, we might feature it in the next video.